Leadership is no longer about intuition, hierarchy, or the loudest voice in the room. It's about understanding the systems of intelligence that shape our world. In a data-driven age, the leaders who thrive are not those who resist algorithms, but those who learn to lead with them. The algorithmic leader sees the future not as something to predict, but as something to design. They harness data not to replace human judgment, but to augment it. They understand that algorithms don't just calculate outcomes. They reshape culture, decision-making, and ultimately the way we work. The challenge of leadership today is simple. How do you lead in a world where machines are not just tools, but partners in thought? When we talk about leadership in the past, we often think of bold individuals making decisions based on their instincts, experience, or the authority they carried. Intuition once played a central role in guiding choices, whether in boardrooms, on factory floors, or in moments of crisis. But in today's world, where every action generates data and every process leaves a digital footprint, leadership cannot rely solely on gut feelings. The challenge is not that intuition is obsolete, but that it is insufficient on its own. Modern leaders must embrace the shift from instinct-driven decisions to evidence-driven leadership. Data, when paired with the right algorithms, allows us to move beyond assumptions into a realm where choices are informed by patterns, probabilities, and predictive insights that no human alone could see. Imagine leading a global organization where customer behavior, market shifts, and supply chain disruptions can change overnight. A leader depending only on personal judgment is vulnerable to blind spots. But with real-time analytics, machine learning models, and algorithmic support, decisions can be grounded in facts rather than fears. This does not diminish the role of human leadership, it enhances it. An algorithm can reveal correlations, identify risks, and forecast outcomes, but it still requires a leader with vision to interpret those insights and take decisive action. Evidence does not replace wisdom, it refines it. This transformation also demands humility. Many leaders have been trained to value their instincts as the mark of experience. Yet, clinging to outdated decision-making styles in a data-rich world is dangerous. The true mark of strength is the willingness to admit that algorithms might surface insights we could never perceive on our own. Think of it as shifting from being a storyteller of personal experiences to becoming an interpreter of complex signals emerging from millions of interactions, transactions, and behaviors. The algorithmic leader uses evidence as a compass, not a crutch. The journey from intuition to evidence also requires building a culture that trusts data. Teams must be empowered to question long-held practices when the evidence suggests a new path forward. Leaders must champion transparency in how data is gathered and analyzed, ensuring that decisions are not just evidence-based, but also ethical and fair. This is particularly important in a time when algorithms influence everything from hiring to product design. If leaders ignore the quality or bias of their data, they risk making decisions that may be efficient but unjust. Ultimately, embracing evidence is about future-proofing leadership. The pace of change will only accelerate, and intuition alone will not keep up. Evidence-driven decision-making gives leaders a deeper lens through which to view complexity and uncertainty. It allows them to act with greater confidence, not because they are infallible, but because they have tools that expand their understanding. In a world where the future is being written in streams of data, the leaders who succeed will not be those who claim to know everything, but those who learn to ask better questions and let evidence guide the answers. The greatest shift in leadership today comes from realizing that machines are no longer just tools we use, but partners in how we think, create, and make decisions. For centuries, leadership has been defined by human ingenuity, creativity, and problem solving. But as algorithms become more sophisticated, the role of a leader is not to compete with machines, but to orchestrate collaboration between human and machine intelligence. This is not about replacing human capabilities. It is about amplifying them. Leaders must recognize that while humans excel in imagination, empathy, and context, machines excel in scale, speed, and precision. The fusion of these strengths opens possibilities that neither side could achieve alone. Consider a business trying to understand shifting consumer demands. A human leader may have a sense of cultural trends or emotional insights into customer behavior. An algorithm, however, can analyze millions of data points across markets, detecting patterns invisible to human eyes. Together, they create a more complete picture. The leader defines the why, while the machine supports the how and what. The result is faster, smarter decisions that still retain a human-centered purpose. Collaboration in this sense is not optional. It is the new foundation of competitive advantage. To lead in this era, one must also embrace vulnerability. Many leaders feel threatened by the rise of machine intelligence, fearing it might erode their authority or diminish their expertise. But the real power comes from acknowledging that algorithms are extensions of our capabilities, not replacements. It is the leader's role to set the vision, ask the right questions, and provide ethical direction. The machine's role is to process information, generate insights, and surface solutions at a scale that human cognition alone cannot match. The leader who understands this balance gains both speed and depth without losing authenticity. This collaboration also extends to how teams are structured. Leaders must design environments where people are not afraid of automation, but empowered by it. Employees should see algorithms as partners that relieve them of repetitive, low-value tasks, freeing them to focus on creativity, innovation, and problem-solving. A workforce that trusts and understands machine intelligence is far more likely to adapt, experiment, and grow. Leaders must, therefore, be translators, bridging the gap between the technical language of algorithms and the human language of values, vision, and purpose. The collaboration between human and machine also raises questions of trust. Leaders cannot blindly accept algorithmic outputs without understanding their limitations. Machines can calculate probabilities, but they lack ethics, empathy, and context. That is where human oversight becomes essential. Leaders must ensure transparency, continually asking, how was this model trained? What assumptions underpin its conclusions? Are there biases hidden in the data? Trust is built not by surrendering judgment to algorithms, but by weaving human oversight into every step of machine collaboration. The future belongs to leaders who can master this dance between human creativity and machine intelligence. They are not threatened by the rise of algorithms. They are empowered by them. They do not ask whether machines will replace humans, but how humans and machines together can redefine what leadership means in a world driven by intelligence at every scale. In the age of algorithms, leadership is no longer only about strategy, vision, or charisma. It is also about ethics, as organizations increasingly rely on algorithms to make decisions. From hiring and promotions to product recommendations and customer experiences, the potential for unintended consequences grows. Algorithms are powerful, but they are not inherently neutral. They reflect the data they are trained on, and that data often carries biases, gaps, and assumptions. An algorithmic leader must understand that ethical leadership is no longer optional. It is central to maintaining trust, fairness, and integrity in every decision the organization makes. Ethical responsibility begins with awareness. Leaders must know what data is being collected, how it is processed, and what outcomes it may produce. Ignoring these questions is no longer acceptable. Organizations that fail to consider the ethical implications of their algorithms risk reputational damage, legal challenges, and the erosion of employee and customer trust. For example, an algorithm designed to optimize hiring might unintentionally favor one group over another if historical hiring data is biased. A leader committed to ethics intervenes early, audits the models, and ensures that fairness is embedded in every layer of decision-making. Transparency is another cornerstone of ethical algorithmic leadership. Leaders must be willing to explain not only the decisions made by algorithms, but also the reasoning behind them. Employees, customers, and stakeholders have a right to understand how outcomes are generated and why certain paths are chosen. Transparency does not mean exposing proprietary secrets, but providing clarity on principles, processes, and safeguards. By doing so, leaders build trust and create a culture where people feel confident that technology is being used responsibly. Accountability goes hand in hand with ethics and transparency. Algorithms can make errors or perpetuate biases, and when they do, someone must take responsibility. Ethical leaders do not hide behind the veneer of machine intelligence. They step forward, acknowledge mistakes, and take corrective action. This requires creating structures and governance mechanisms that monitor algorithmic outcomes continuously. allowing for adjustments before harm occurs. Accountability ensures that technology serves humans, not the other way around. Ethical leadership also means foresight. Leaders must anticipate the social, cultural, and psychological impact of algorithmic decisions. They must ask not only what the algorithm can do, but what it should do. This requires balancing efficiency and innovation with human values, ensuring that progress does not come at the cost of fairness or dignity. Ethical leaders are proactive, not reactive. They shape the design, deployment, and monitoring of algorithms in ways that align with both organizational goals and societal norms. Ultimately, ethics in algorithmic leadership is about embedding human values into systems that increasingly make decisions independently. It is the recognition that technology amplifies both strengths and weaknesses, and leadership is the force that ensures it amplifies the right ones. Leaders who embrace this responsibility understand that their role is not only to harness the power of algorithms, but to do so in a way that is just transparent and accountable, shaping a future where technology serves humanity, not undermines it, in an era defined by rapid technological change and constant disruption. Adaptability has become the cornerstone of effective leadership. Traditional approaches, rigid hierarchies, fixed strategies, and reliance on past experience are no longer sufficient. The algorithmic leader understands that adaptability is not a reactive measure, but a proactive mindset. It is about cultivating a culture that embraces change, encourages experimentation, and learns quickly from both success and failure. In a world where algorithms continuously generate new insights and reveal unforeseen patterns, the ability to pivot and respond with agility is what separates thriving organizations from those left behind. Adaptability begins with mindset. Leaders must accept that certainty is an illusion and that the environment in which they operate is constantly evolving. Algorithms provide vast amounts of data and predictive insights, but these are only valuable if the organization can interpret and act upon them. The algorithmic leader encourages teams to view change not as a threat, but as an opportunity to innovate, optimize, and discover new pathways to success. This mindset fosters resilience, allowing organizations to navigate disruptions without losing momentum or purpose. A culture of adaptability requires structural support. Organizations must be designed to respond quickly with flexible processes, cross-functional teams, and mechanisms that enable rapid iteration. Algorithms can highlight emerging trends, shifts in consumer behavior, or operational inefficiencies, but it is the human capacity to act on these insights that drives results. Leaders must ensure that decision-making is distributed, empowering teams to experiment, learn, and adjust strategies in real time. This approach transforms organizations from reactive entities into dynamic, self-correcting systems. Adaptability also demands continuous learning. The algorithmic leader recognizes that both humans and machines are part of an evolving ecosystem. Teams must be equipped with the skills to understand, interpret, and leverage algorithmic insights effectively. Leaders themselves must remain students of technology, culture, and human behavior, constantly updating their knowledge to guide informed decisions. By modeling a commitment to learning, leaders set the tone for the organization, signaling that growth and adaptation are core values, not optional extras. Moreover, adaptability involves embracing uncertainty with confidence. Algorithms can reduce ambiguity by providing predictions and identifying trends, but the future can never be fully known. Leaders must make decisions in the face of incomplete information, balancing data-driven insights with intuition and judgment. They must cultivate a tolerance for experimentation, understanding that failure is not only inevitable, but also instructive. Organizations that punish missteps stifle innovation, while those that reward learning accelerate progress. Finally, adaptability in algorithmic leadership is about foresight and anticipation. Leaders who thrive are constantly scanning the horizon, identifying emerging risks, opportunities, and trends. They use algorithms not just to analyze what has happened, but to simulate possible futures, preparing their organizations to respond before change becomes a crisis. In doing so, adaptability becomes a strategic advantage, enabling organizations to move with agility, seize opportunities, and remain relevant in an increasingly complex world. The essence of modern leadership is no longer about having all the answers. It is about asking the right questions. In a world driven by algorithms, data, and continuous streams of information, the traditional image of the leader as the ultimate problem solver is outdated. Algorithms can process enormous amounts of data, uncover hidden patterns, and provide predictive insights, but they cannot define purpose, set priorities, or understand nuance in human terms. The role of the leader has shifted from being the source of answers to being the architect of inquiry, guiding teams and systems toward the right questions that unlock meaningful solutions. This approach begins with curiosity. Leaders must cultivate a mindset that constantly interrogates assumptions, challenges conventional wisdom, and probes the limitations of available information. Algorithms are tools, not oracles. They can reveal correlations and probabilities, but they cannot determine the questions worth asking. The leader's role is to frame the problems that matter, ensuring that data-driven insights are aligned with organizational values, goals, and long-term vision. In doing so, leaders create a dynamic dialogue between human judgment and machine intelligence, where each informs and elevates the other. Asking the right questions also requires humility. It demands acknowledging that no single individual or team has complete knowledge, and that complex systems are inherently unpredictable. The algorithmic leader embraces this uncertainty, viewing it as an opportunity to explore, iterate, and refine approaches rather than as a threat to authority. By encouraging inquiry over instruction, leaders empower their teams to engage critically with data, to test hypotheses, and to discover insights that would remain hidden in a top-down, answer-driven environment. The skill of questioning extends beyond the internal workings of the organization. Leaders must also interrogate the ethical, social, and cultural implications of algorithmic decisions. What assumptions are embedded in the data? Whose interests are prioritized? Could the outputs unintentionally reinforce bias or inequity? By asking these questions, leaders ensure that algorithms serve humanity rather than undermine it. This vigilance transforms leadership from a reactive exercise into a proactive commitment to responsibility, fairness, and accountability. Furthermore, the ability to ask the right questions fuels innovation. Algorithms can highlight opportunities, detect inefficiencies, and predict trends, but they cannot generate creativity on their own. Leaders must craft questions that spark exploration, guide experimentation, and inspire teams to envision solutions that are both novel and practical. In this way, questioning becomes the engine of progress, turning data into insight and insight into action. Ultimately, redefining decision making through inquiry positions the algorithmic leader at the intersection of human judgment and technological power. Success is no longer measured by how quickly a leader provides answers, but by how effectively they guide the organization to discover answers that are meaningful, ethical, and strategically aligned. In a world saturated with information, the leader who asks the right questions shapes the future, ensures relevance, and transforms uncertainty into opportunity. Leadership today is no longer confined to managing people or processes. It is about designing systems, cultures, and experiences that amplify human potential. In an age where algorithms and data-driven intelligence increasingly influence outcomes, the role of the leader is not only to guide decisions, but to shape the environment in which those decisions are made. True leadership is measured not by the speed of execution or the size of influence, but by the ability to create structures where humans and machines coexist productively, ethically, and creatively. Designing the future is a proactive act requiring vision, foresight, and an understanding of both human behavior and technological capability. At the heart of this approach is systems thinking. The algorithmic leader understands that organizations are complex, interdependent networks. Every decision has cascading effects, and the integration of machine intelligence amplifies these dynamics. Leaders must design processes and workflows that optimize both efficiency and adaptability. By embedding algorithms thoughtfully, they can streamline operations, reduce friction, and uncover opportunities for innovation. But systems alone are insufficient. They must be guided by values that prioritize human experience, fairness, and sustainability. Designing the future means creating systems where technology enhances rather than diminishes humanity. Culture is another critical dimension. The most advanced systems fail if the people operating within them are resistant, fearful, or disengaged. Leaders must cultivate environments where curiosity, collaboration, and experimentation are encouraged, they foster psychological safety, allowing teams to explore new ideas without fear of failure and to question algorithmic outputs constructively. Culture becomes the lens through which technological and human capabilities are aligned, ensuring that innovation is both impactful and responsible. In essence, the leader designs a culture that acts as the connective tissue between human ingenuity and algorithmic intelligence. Experienced design extends this concept into every interaction, both internal and external. Leaders must anticipate how employees, customers, and stakeholders will engage with systems and processes, shaping experiences that are seamless, ethical, and empowering. Algorithmic insights provide the data, but human judgment ensures the design resonates with people's needs and expectations. By focusing on experience, leaders translate abstract intelligence into tangible impact, transforming insights into meaningful outcomes that drive engagement, satisfaction, and loyalty. Foresight and anticipation are central to designing the future. Leaders must not only respond to current trends, but also imagine possibilities that have yet to emerge. They simulate scenarios, test interventions, and prepare the organization to act before change becomes disruptive. Algorithms can help forecast, but it is the leader's vision that determines which pathways are worth pursuing. By combining predictive intelligence with strategic design, leaders create organizations that are resilient, agile, and forward-looking. Ultimately, designing the future is about amplifying potential. It is about creating systems where humans can focus on creativity, empathy, and strategic insight while machines handle complexity, scale, and prediction. The algorithmic leader does not merely react to change, they shape the context in which change occurs. By designing the systems, culture, and experiences that define how people and machines work together, leaders unlock possibilities that neither could achieve alone, ensuring that the organization thrives in an increasingly complex, intelligent, and connected world.